Joining me, everyone, Charles Moscowitz. Welcome to the program, Monday through Friday, live at 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here at the flagship station, which is YouTube and all of the subscribing platforms. We do take calls here, believe it or not. And the number is 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. My guest is Cindy Grosz. She is with Cindy's Corners, award-winning media personality, brand ambassador, Jewish activist. For years, she's been backstage, front row, and on the red carpet, sharing exclusive interviews. Cindy, how did a nice Jewish girl end up supporting President Trump?
It was very easy. There was no choice. This man was the best president in history for Jewish Americans and for Israel. And I was one who actually sat front row when Ronald Reagan spoke at a synagogue. So my relationship with Republicans and presidents goes way back. But as we see every day what's going on in the news, we need him back, or we need the policies back.
I think you're right. In fact, I would hope that we could need him literally back, but we can't go into that too much because this is YouTube. But let me just ask you this. And this is, of course, a seminal question. Why are so many of our co-religionists liberal and on the left? And why were they so much willing to join this sort of hype and this kind of hysteria that was anti-Trump?
So I get this question all the time. Before Trump, I was very active in the the anti-Iran nuclear deal rally at Times Square. I've spoken out against the squad. A lot of anti-Semitism. In fact, I was a whistleblower about anti-Semitism in schools and against Randy Weingarten way before critical race theory was, popular. Mm. So anyway, my analysis from who I speak with is that unlike a Black person or an Asian person or other minorities that stand out physically, Jews don't stand out as physically, and we assimilate well wherever we are throughout our history. And if you read the Bible and you read our pluses and minuses, we have been all over the world. We've assimilated, not only we assimilated, we have exceeded expectations for a minority. So the best way that we continue to grow through assimilation and acceptance, we overcompensate our Judaism and our idea of if we save one person, we save the world, to include everybody but Jews.
We, in a way, in America, I don't mean I don't know how this is going to sound, but we pass as white. Let's put it that way. I mean, we assimilate, as you say, and yet we maintain our Jewish faith and our identity to certain degrees. But I think that we want to kiss up to the power elite. I don't know how else to say it. Dr. Benjamin Ginsberg wrote a book. He's passed away since. I interviewed him a couple of times, called The Fatal Embrace, Jews and the State, where he talks about the history of Jews living in Christian world and in probably the Muslim world, basically currying favor with the prince or the king or the power nexus, the non-Jewish power elite, and basically conducting certain functions for them that they could not do inside their own religion. And in exchange, get protection, get security. You know that they're going to be okay. But the fatal embrace has to do with the fact that once that king died or was removed from power, there'd be a new king, and that king may not be so friendly. So, it was always an insecurity that maybe we overcompensated by over-embracing authority, trying to go the ninth mile.
Correct.
Curry favor with what we perceive as the powers that be. And the powers that be generally are left of center, because leftism is all about authority. It's about earthly authority, the idea of transforming man on earth. So therefore, we have cottoned to that, even though it actually runs against Jewish principles. And we've done it in the name of safety and acceptance and, a certain basic sense of insecurity in our own safety and who we are, that we want to be like it's like what the Torah says. We want to be like other nations. I mean, except we didn't have a nation until recent century. And so we have this kind of almost, we're out liberaling liberals in order to say, hey, me too, I'm with you, I'm okay. And we forget who we are. We become like a hologram. It's like we just stand for supporting the other people, whether we like them or not, but we're not going to really look within and see who we are and what our mission is and what the Jewish covenant is, actually.
Also, we also believe in the idea that, it's not really happening. You speak to many Holocaust survivors, and they lived many of them, especially the Hungarians who were later killed towards the, later in the Holocaust, the later years. You speak to many of them, and they lived really good lives. We think we live great lives in America, but a lot of them also had their chauffeurs, and they had so many people in help, hand washing china and sterling and all that. And they thought it can never happen. And look what happened to them. And that's what we think now that's going on here. It can't happen, but it's happening all over the world, all over the country. It's amazing how I ran as a religious Jewish woman for Congress, the first one in both parties. And people said to me all the time, Cindy, what are you talking about? Look at the Democrats. We never had a religious Jewish woman. We only had one religious man, Joe Lieberman. And they can't believe that with all of this. And now, people ask me all the time, I should run again. I have such a voice. Would I do it? And we talk about every group. Blacks are growing in the Republican Party, Hispanics in record numbers. There are so many congressional candidates I work with Jewish Vote GOP. I'm working with a project right now with a congressional candidate with the Indian community that's growing. And yet, no one wants to talk about having the first religious Jewish woman running for Congress and actually being there. Actually, somebody who would talk about issues with the squad in a respectful way.
Well, I think it's because people have written off the Jews as being hopelessly liberal and hopelessly on the left. I've almost written them off. I take a look even at the Orthodox shul here in Boston, where we were briefly members along with the conservative shul. And they were, the Orthodox were to the left of the conservatives. People would speak to me, Soto Voce, Chuck, we're with you, but don't tell anybody, please. I don't want to lose my position, but we want you to step out and be a champion, which I eventually decided not to do in that case. But yeah,
I could answer that. I was honored in 2017 by the National Council of Young Israel. And then when I started doing some of my work and some of the stuff was published, I got phone calls. Please don't mention that you won an award from National Council of Young Israel. Now, National Council of Young Israel has thrown off everybody who was a conservative Republican and has made it super liberal. And they were part of that bogus anti-Semitism rally in Washington, D.C., along with ADL. So I totally get what you're saying. But I also get this because I'm so involved in the fashion world, and I'm also involved in the celebrity world. You won't believe how many people befriend me, and I'm their spokesperson because they just want to do business with me because of my political beliefs.
But do they want to do it publicly?
More and more are going to be coming out.
I hope so.
I don't think New York is, a lot has to do with local and state leadership. If you have a weak New York State GOP, and you have weak county leaderships that do not believe in the First America, Save America, Donald Trump Republicans, and don't support their grassroots, it's going to be turned really progressive. And you're going to see that in November in New York. It's the mayor's race. I don't care what Eric Adams says. He's going to pander. He has a history of pandering. You're going to have a progressive, self-hating Bernie Sanders Jew running your money for comptroller, and you're going to have a progressive city council with the majority of the Democrats elected progressive. Not only that, but you're going to have record losses for the Republicans upstate, Nassau County, and all over the state. So people feel it's not so much on the national level, it's the local levels. They are disillusioned by county leaderships, state committee people, and the state party leadership.
I think that there may be, though, a political implosion in New York State because of the Cuomo implosion. And that's not just because of the sexual assaults that were covered up all those years by the liberals, but also because putting COVID-19 active people in nursing homes, which is almost genocide. I don't need to be extreme about it, but we're talking about the deaths of over 10,000 people while President Trump's hospital ship sat in New York Harbor empty with military trained medical personnel waiting for those patients to come aboard. And I think that it's come out now that the reason Cuomo did this is because he didn't want Trump to look good. Right.
So I must tell you, I have a totally different outlook than you because I am a victim of a corrupt New York Supreme Court system tied to local Democrats, tied to the teachers unions, and tied to the New York State Supreme Court. So I actually did not like when Donald Trump was the target of Letitia James. I don't like what happened to Rudy Giuliani because of his ties to Trump.
Yeah.
And I still believe in innocence before proven guilty with trial by jury, not guilty by media, because I am a victim as well. I know how corrupt offices of investigations and child protective services and Department of Education staff members are, because I have transcripts and legal documentation of this, but no one wants to talk about it because I'm not a former president, I'm not a former attorney general, and I'm not a governor. What's happening to Cuomo is a lot of politically, very carefully planned strategies. It's his time to fall because he's not progressive enough for Albany, and he's not progressive enough for the people that want to take over the state. I'm not supporting him one bit. I totally believe that there is something to learn, but I proved to learn it the same way I want to prove that there was no Russia collusion through the court system in a fair way without prejudice. Let him be called guilty by his peers through evidence and witness testimony legally.
Well, I think that's already been proven that whole thing was a hoax anyways. The idea that President Trump was a spy for Russia was...
No, I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Cuomo.
Oh, okay. Well, as far as that goes, I can't believe that New Yorkers, and, I have family in New York, and that even though they're liberal left, they must have still a few scruples left, a couple of shreds of consciousness left to see that this vendetta against Trump and his family by Letitia James, really running by saying, I'm going to put Trump in prison and his children and his business, and then taking Weisselberg and trotting him out in chains because he took a gift, something that all business people do. No one's ever been prosecuted for that. Even liberal New Yorkers must have tiny shreds of consciousness to see how fascist this is.
No. I am telling you, if they really felt that way, they would have put up quality Republican candidates for mayor. You can't walk the streets of Manhattan. Brooklyn, Queens has become a hub of random shots to innocent victims.
Right in broad daylight on 42nd Street now, right up in Times Square, right?
Correct.
Correct. This is, the increase in crime, a lot of it has to do with the squad and AOL. I can't believe that that's still supported. Basically discrediting police departments and defunding police departments. Now you don't have young people getting into policing, and they're not going to police academy. People are retiring early. People are getting out because you don't know. You'll walk out one day, you take your life in your hands, and you might end up, having to arrest somebody who might happen to be Black, and you're going to have your life destroyed for that.
So I have to tell you, as much as you say that, a lot of Republicans are voting Democratic because they don't feel there's a party here to support. So they rather have a little voice in a Democratic Party than no voice at all. It's the fault of the local and state level Republicans that it comes down to this. So as someone who is very involved in New York politics in both parties, I can tell you what is going on. I get hundreds of calls on this. I work on campaigns. And I will tell you, as a Jew, I'm not very happy with Cuomo, what he did with his tweets and how he treated Jews during COVID last year. You want to talk about questionable anti-Semitism. You know, people forget that.
Yes, him and de Blasio. Terrible.
Correct.
Terrible.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, I don't see Jews flocking as a group supporting the Republicans. They're not, and they shouldn't be. So if you think we're just going to automatically win the gubernatorial race next year, you'll be very surprised.
That you think we will win it?
We won't win it.
You know, I mean, it gets back to the fatal embrace. Jews are afraid to stick their neck out and be openly supportive of common sense things that support just their community, but also America. I mean, getting back to the subject of Donald Trump, I mean, the most pro-America, pro-Israel, pro-Jewish president in history. I mean, going back to, the most significant, brokered the most significant peace deal between Israel and 3 or 4 Arab nations, probably since Truman, recognized the state of Israel in 1948. And yet—
But you know what? Truman did it, and did it, like, if people know the story, because of his business partner, and really didn't have a relationship. Donald Trump has had decades of relationships with Jews. Donald Trump's grandchildren are Jewish. He proudly, that White House was filled with Orthodox Jews that had no problems, having a minyan. I've been to the White House when he was there, having kosher food. I was at the embassy opening in Jerusalem. I do have a personal relationship, many more years than President Trump did, with the former ambassador David Friedman. And there was no question about how people were treated and how they really felt about the White House and about the administration and the president. And it's still apparent with what he does. There's always a joke. You ask Robert Kraft or you ask David Friedman, nobody likes to go to a shiva call more than Donald Trump.
And yet I get these tweets, or I did during the Trump times, from the ADL and from people like Stephen Grossman here in Massachusetts, former Treasury Secretary, now Jewish kind of Federation guy, that Trump's an anti-Semite. They go through this whole intricate thing where in 1952 he said something on this day where he's seen doing this, and he went like that. All of a sudden they come up with this nutty conspiracy theory that he has something against Jews. What is the deal with that?
Well, you know what? It's all fake media. It's the education system. I could tell you, with my relationship with Randi Weingarten, the self-hating Jew that she is, and now her partner was just named in the Biden administration in a position in regard to confronting anti-Semitism. When Randi Weingarten tweeted in April a very anti-Semitic attack on Jews in regard to what's going on right now, in 2006, on the New York Department of Education business email, a Black principal from a failing, corrupt school district, 29 in Queens, which was mostly Black staff and Black families and Black students, passed around a 4-page email calling white women docile and easy. And when I sent this to Randi Weingarten, her answer to me was, where did I get this? And she's seen it many times before, and then went on to retaliate against me for exposing it. So when you have that kind of situation, and a Randi Weingarten who is so close with the Clintons, so close with the Obamas, so close with the Bidens, working with Michelle Obama on getting minorities registered to vote through high schools since 2019, well, there's a big issue.
Well, look, we're getting into, we're skirting an issue here, and I don't want to go too specific, which is the November 3rd movement, the 2020 election. And I think that probably President Trump did better among Jews than people realize. but they're
He
very
did.
quiet about it. People don't want to say, don't tell anyone, Chuck. But because obviously his administration was in every sense pro-Jewish, pro-Israel, and probably did even better if you really had a legitimate look at the actual vote. I don't want to say more about that because they'll pull me, because I'll be censored. But I do think that there is a movement that could a couple of good leaders like yourself, Cindy, stepping out publicly, and saying, hey, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. And that can change the whole atmosphere. You only need one or two people. This is how the left works. You get one or two people who go into an organization who's on the left, and they say all of a sudden you have to do this and that, and everybody kind of backs away. Nobody wants confrontation. And before you know it, the whole company has changed to fit this one person, whereas the majority were not interested. Well, we can do the opposite. We can stand up and play that game too. We can stand up and say, hey, this is what we stand for. And then you'll see people come out of the woodwork, quietly, and then maybe more courageously, and you'll have a movement.
So I could answer you with two things. First of all, Jews, even Republican Jews, have to become better educated about Jewish organizations, even if they claim to be bipartisan or Republican, because a lot of them are not as Republican as you think. And you've got to do education before you trust these leaders and donate to them. And the second thing is, I'm going to have a huge announcement in September, gearing exactly to what you're discussing, because I am called constantly. I'm building a nice little coalition of a 2022 freshman class of pro-Israel Republicans from all backgrounds, from all 50 states, working with people on the local and state level. And there's going to be a huge announcement about this that is going to be very, very much tied to making sure that 2020 never happens again, and that the policies of President Trump not only come back, but come back stronger and better than ever.
Well, Cindy, you strike me as the person who could do this, and I'm really very proud of you for doing it. And I
thank you.
You're using your network and you're using your agency, as it were, to basically propel this message across to all 50 states. So talk a little bit about your broadcast and what you're doing over there at Cindy's Corner.
So it's Cindy's Celebrity Corner. Your audience can hear us live if they're in the tri-state area at 9:00 Saturday night on 620, 1640 a.m. Anything with Talkline Network, Zeb Brenner. And I'm also on Jewish Podcast, so it's internationally, and 8 podcast outlets I'm downloaded. What I try to do with my show is I try to make sure that people appreciate the best of the Jewish culture, and that non-Jewish people share with us from their headline trending fashion, food, entertainment, for the best of our culture. Plus, I don't cancel culture, I encourage culture. Like I said, I have a load of friends in the fashion business. I'm backstage at many shows for many years. I'm working with jewelry designers. I work in the food and the wine business. In fact, one of our big sponsors is Royal Wines, one of the largest distributors internationally of kosher wines that my non-Jewish friends buy because they drink it in my house and love. I mean, you go in Bartonella and Moscato, I mean, Baron Herzog, Rosé Zinfandel are internationally known. So we try to do the best of that. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is because so many people are not allowed to get on mainstream media and share, because they might have political influences, or they might have some feelings that might not go along with their bosses. And yet so many of them, I work with producers, directors, technical people. We promoted movies like Nick Loeb's Roe versus Wade with John Voight. I'm very close with Siggy Flicker from the New Jersey Housewives. We've been working together for years before it was popular to do all this. Practically every Bravo TV show I have connections with, and they're all supporting me in my work because I represent their voice.
Very good. And also, Israeli wines are really coming up in the world, by the way, especially around Mount Carmel and Golan. So
Yes.
check it out. Cindy, listen, I want to thank you for joining me today. Again, mention the websites where people can listen to you and reach you.
Okay, first of all, please reach out to me directly through social media. I answer everybody. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Cindy's Corners. I'm also cindyscorners.com is the website. And we're going to have a huge announcement regarding the expansion of the show. It started in March and it's grown so much already. We are actually doing something huge in September with that as well. So I'm doing something politically big and something celebrity entertainment big. And
Good.
everything is for America first.
Well, it's nice to combine politics with entertainment and fun stuff too. So Cindy, keep me posted. I'd like to have you on around the time of your big announcement.
Well, thank you so much and have a great Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Thank you, Cindy.